Hello everybody, welcome to MNB World Talk Scoop. So this time we have invited two bikers from the USA and co-founders of Rally for Rangers Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Tom Medema and Mr. Wesley Thornberry. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
How
Thanks
are you?
for having us. Good.
Thank you for coming.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, could you please introduce yourselves first of all?
Well, my name's Tom Medema, and I am from the U.S., currently living near Washington, D.C., where I work for the United States National Park Service,
Oh, I see.
and then do as well the Rally for Rangers work with Wesley. So, yeah.
The Wesley?
I'm
Briefly.
I'm from the United States, but currently I live in Mongolia. I've been here since 2017.
I see. So, Tom, my first question will be about your coming to Mongolia. So, how did you decide to travel to Mongolia, first of all?
It was very accidental. It was May of 2014. I was working in Yosemite National Park, and the Mongol Ecology Center, and Wesley's wife Ono and some others came to Yosemite on a visit to learn about Yosemite and how it works. And during that visit, they started talking about a motorcycle rally they were doing. And I was like, what? You're doing motorcycling in Mongolia for park rangers? Like,
Wow.
two of my greatest passions combined. And so they asked me if I would like to come. And it was only
Wow.
6 weeks away. And I said yes. 6 weeks later, I was in Asia for the first time, in Mongolia for the first time.
Wow.
And it was very accidental, but it changed my life.
And first time riding off-road.
It's the first time riding a motorcycle off-road as well.
So, Wesley, what about the uniqueness of this year's travel? What do you think?
You know, and on all the rallies, Mongolia is has so many beautiful places and so many pristine places, but we had the fortune to visit Numrud National Park in the far east, and it's just amazing how pristine it is. We feel so lucky to have seen that. It's one of the most pristine places I think I've seen in the world.
Wow. Well, thank you. Now let us introduce you to our viewers a little bit more in photos. Shall we? Okay, let's take a look. So, Tom, you've been fond of working in national parks since your young age, right? So, could you please tell us how that passionate career started? And also, I know that you traveled around west of America with your family, right? So, could you please tell us the very beginning?
Yeah, very fortunate, you know, as a child growing up in Michigan with a family of a tool and die maker and a mother there. We didn't travel too much, but when we did, my dad made sure that we went to national parks, as he did when he was a kid in the 1950s. And so he took us to places like Yellowstone, Rocky Mountain National Park, throughout the American West. And so our whole family kind of developed a passion for national parks and national park travel. I didn't think about that much until I was in college, and then decided that an environmental career was where I wanted to go, and that national parks was an option for me. So I ended up getting my first ever park ranger job at Rocky Mountain National Park, which is one of the places my dad took us, you know, when I was 10 years old. So to be able to go back there and become a ranger in that place that I visited with my family was, you know, incredibly special. And now 30 years later, I'm still a park ranger, and I've been able to work in, you know, Yosemite, Mount Rainier, Rocky Mountain National Park, and many, many other places in the United States.
Oh, I see. So, Wesley, what about you? How did you decide to join this travel?
Join Rally for Rangers?
Yes.
It started when I first met my wife, Ono. We did a trip to Mongolia together for about a month and explored the whole country. And I just took up her passion for national parks as well.
And could you please tell us the Rally for Ranger Foundation itself?
Tom, you want to?
Well, yeah, you know, the Rally for Rangers concept started with Wesley and Ono and our other co-founder, Bob McIntosh, on the shores of Lake Hovsgol on a visit in 2013 when they saw a park ranger there whose motorcycle just wouldn't work and he couldn't do his job. And McIntosh at that time said, I'm going to come back next year and I'm going to bring you a brand new motorcycle. And Wesley was like, I'll do that. And a bunch of other people in the States said, we'll do that. And then I came in almost at the very end and said, I'll do that. And 1 year later, 15 of us rode Yamaha AG200s from UB to Lake Hovsgol. And that's how Rally for Rangers was born, through Wesley and Bob in that moment with Ono on the shores of Lake Hovsgol.
But why Rangers?
Well, the environmental protection, environmental movement in Mongolia is relatively new, and the national parks, have just been established since 1992. Yes. So they're still figuring out what the national park model should look like. And so McIntosh and Ono, Wesley, myself are helping because of our passion for parks, and because the motorcycle is really the best tool for them to patrol and to do their job and to combat poaching and illegal mining and the different things they do.
I mean, these parks in Mongolia are so large that patrolling by horse or on foot just isn't practical. So you really need a quality motorcycle to be able to cover the distances.
Yeah, and it's making a real difference for them out there. We hear that from them every year. They're so grateful because they can go further, do more with the new motorcycle.
And what do you think about today's value of Rangers in Mongolia? What would you say?
I think the value is definitely increasing in Mongolia. We've heard stories from Lake Hovsgol that now that people see that people from all over the world are coming to donate motorcycles to these rangers, that they're like, wow, these guys are pretty important. They must be.
Yeah, and I think that the view is changing from one of people who were keeping them out of a place where they used to be able to go wherever they want, to now understanding that they're there to protect. Right. Not to keep you out, but to help protect, so we can keep it for future generations. Yeah.
And how that idea came to you to gift those bikes?
Well, like I said, it was, maybe you can tell a little bit more about that day in 2013 when the idea was born, right?
Yeah,
it was just the quality of the bikes they had was so bad.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the head ranger, he heard about something illegal happening in the park while we were with him, and he took off on his old Chinese motorcycle that, he financed himself, and it was an old, decrepit bike, and it was embarrassing for him. In front of us, his bike broke down, and he couldn't do his job. So it really, hit both of us.
So that exactly pushed you to that idea to gift.
That's the day the idea was born.
It was originally, the original idea was just to give 1 or 2 bikes to the park because we knew these guys, but when I got back to the United States and talked to my motorcycle friends, I told them the story, and they're like, why don't we bring 15 bikes? There's 15 rangers at Lake Hovsgol National Park. And so that's what we did the first year. And then after the first year, Tom and I decided we should keep this going. And that's how Rally for Rangers was born.
We did 20 bikes the following year, and then 10 bikes in 2017, and so on and so on. And now we're at 127 bikes, or?
Yeah, we've delivered 90 bikes to Mongolia already, and we've been in 2 other countries.
Where?
We've delivered bikes in Argentina and Nepal, and next month we're going to be going to Bhutan to deliver bikes there. As well as Peru in May, and then we're already discussing plans for next year, which will be Mongolia again in the summer. There's always a Mongolia rally every year because it started here, and then we're talking about Africa in early 2022.
That must be really
the
hard and difficult.
The challenges faced by rangers here are faced by rangers around the world. And they all need more equipment, better equipment. They're just not funded the way they should be. And so we're just trying to fill that gap with motorcycles in as many places as we can.
So, and by traveling other countries and make this journey, so what personally, what skills do you gain? Because this...
Well, Wesley's way more world traveled than I am. 70 countries, or
yeah, 70 plus.
And I've been to maybe 6 or 7. But again, Mongolia was my first time in Asia. So that first trip in 2014, not only was it my first experience learning to travel and be in Asia, but also my first time riding a motorcycle off-road. So learning those skills, learning how to travel in a remote place like Mongolia with the food, with the water, making sure that I stay healthy and stay on the motorcycle. And I learned so many things in that first rally, but also inspired me. I want to do more of this.
Such as?
For other countries, right? To go to places like Bhutan and Nepal. I would like to visit every national park in Mongolia. I haven't even visited all the national parks in the United States, but I want to, with Wesley, bring motorcycles to every national park in Mongolia, and we've got a good start.
And I think more than skills that you learn, it's just when you go to different countries, you understand that things that are happening in those countries to their environment is affecting everybody in the world. You know, we live in a global society, and you know, if these parks in Mongolia get destroyed, it's going to affect the rest of the world.
And with what difficulties do you face when you have those travels around other countries, in Mongolia especially?
We talk a lot about Plan B when we do our rallies, because we come in with a plan, but it always changes. And so we have a plan A, we have a route,
just going.
But then the rivers flood, or the trucks break down,
yes.
or there's an injury, or there's something that diverts us.
Yes.
And on this trip, we had to make up 1 or 2 days of travel because of some delays in the remote nature of the travel. And again, that's not something you find in the States. Like it's pretty, and it happens in the different countries. We had flooding and a river crossing bridge that was out in Argentina, and certainly some interesting times like snow and other things in Nepal. So always we're at Plan B and Plan C.
So could you please tell us the most interesting or curious story that you had?
But do you have one?
From Rally for Rangers?
I know mine. Mine is actually in the West. I will speak to a day that we got separated from all of our equipment. We always, as route finding is difficult out there, and our equipment, all of our camping gear and our food went one way, and we're in one valley, and all the riders were in another valley. And it's 10 o'clock at night. It's getting dark. We're, in the Kazakh region.
Wow.
And we all came rolling up on a herding family out there, a Kazakh and Mongolian family, just unannounced, all 15 of us. And they raced back to their gear. They got all their food out. They invited all of us in, and they invited us to stay there if we had to, if we couldn't connect with our things. That, to me, was one of the most amazing, and truly speaks to the Mongolian hospitality and the nomadic herding nature. I always tell that story because I don't know that you'd find that in a lot of other countries. 15 strangers rolling up on motorcycles. We would lock our doors in the States, and they put out everything for us. And they were ready to give up their home for us.
You hear about the hospitality in Mongolia, but we actually got to experience it. And when we were in need, and they came through for us.
They did. They did. So
amazing.
To me, that's my most memorable story, despite all the fun crashes I've had. So.
Okay. And what about you?
Just on this trip, we had in Numrud National Park. One of the rangers told us about how he knows the park, and he got lost there for 3 days. It took him 3 days to get out. And on this trip, we had one rider who got lost, and he was terrified for about 15 minutes until we finally found him. But if somebody did get lost, it's very challenging to find them in Mongolia.
Okay, now let's take a look at the video with your travels. Okay,
Great.
Let's take a look. Okay.
Around the globe, endangered species and priceless cultural antiquities are under constant threat from poachers and other criminal activity. Charismatic wildlife such as rhinoceros, elephant, snow leopard, and tiger are at risk, and with them, the loss of critical biodiversity on our planet. In the wilderness areas of Mongolia, Nepal, Patagonia, Africa, and other remote corners of the world, park rangers are on the front lines in this ongoing battle.
So with Rally for Rangers, you raise the cash to buy a motorcycle, and that motorcycle is waiting for you in Mongolia or other countries that we're in, and then you ride it in some really difficult conditions for multiple days. At the end, you hand that bike over to a ranger. It's very personal, and you change that one person's life. People that come on the rally are having a direct impact on protecting these areas. You're doing something great for the environment. I mean, you're using a motorcycle to help protect national parks.
Successfully patrolling vast expanses of often roadless and rugged landscapes over days or weeks requires high-quality and durable motorcycles and other outdoor gear.
Motorcyclists have an obligation to stand up and, help protect these national parks and these wild places so they can utilize them.
The threats don't have to persist. Species can and are being saved. If each one of us can channel the will and commitment of the ranger, the planet we see and experience will continue to provide for the health and survival of all species.
So what is the main feature of Rally for Rangers from other traveling programs? What do you think?
That's motorcycles, right? Yeah, I mean, we're at this intersection of motorcycles and the environment, which aren't things that naturally go together for a lot of people. Many people think that motorcycles are maybe destructive and not good for the environment. But when you travel abroad, you see that motorcycles are necessary for all of life, for work, for pleasure, for getting around, for getting the groceries,
certainly.
motorcycles.
Yes.
And so we have this niche where we are giving back via motorcycles to protect the environment, using that tool that the rangers need to protect the environment. And we're unaware of anybody else doing anything quite like it. There are organizations that are using motorcycles to get medicine to remote places like in Africa and things like that, and certainly different organizations using motorcycles for good. We're the only organization that we know of currently using motorcycles to protect the environment and giving them to park rangers as well.
Yes.
In a way, you could consider what we're doing ecotourism is that it's traveling with a purpose. You can easily come and book a motorcycle tour in Mongolia and have a great time and see Mongolia, but you're not doing anything for Mongolia. Whereas on our tour, at the end of it, you hand that bike over to a ranger and you get to meet the ranger. It's a very personal one-on-one experience that you just can't get with any other kind of tour.
Mm-hmm. And what big opportunities this Rally for Ranger gives to you?
Well, for me, I mean, it's become a whole, passion of mine, right? Like I've been fond of saying it's not what I do for a living, it's what I live to do.
Yes.
And that's really what it's become for me, remarkably, is just all of my free time, my wife will tell you, is spent doing Rally for Rangers work. I mean, I do my day job with the national parks, and that's related, but it's separate from. And so, it's just become a passion project, to spend your time recruiting riders, doing the fundraising, doing the planning, working with Wesley and Badril and Ono and others around the world to kind of execute these things. It's very fulfilling, personally.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity to actually do something for the environment. I mean, it seems so overwhelming to try and do something, to change things that are happening in the world today. But, we feel like we're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And does traveling become your, maybe let's say, lifestyle?
More for Wesley than for me, I think. Although, I travel a lot in the States, right? So I've been to 250 national park sites across the United States, and recently was in Alaska for some work, and I get to do that sort of travel. And then Wesley has that same experience, but more internationally with Ono.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does give me a lot of opportunity to travel because going to other countries to scout out parks that need assistance, we need to meet the rangers and we need to see the parks and see if we can even do a rally there. So it's definitely a lot of opportunity to travel, and we do quite a bit of it.
Yeah, and they, like you said, they have to go and do the pre-trip. You can't just show up and hope it's all going to work. So they went to Bhutan last year after the Nepal trip, or 2 years ago, and they did the whole Numrug trip before this trip, and then he's heading to Africa to scope that out. So that the travel is combined with our work as well as personal travel and enjoyment and things like that. So yeah, we both get to travel a fair bit for this and other things.
And how traveling influences on your everyday life? What do you think?
Perspective and empathy for me. I remember my first trip to Chile and seeing what little the parks had, how few things. When I was in Yosemite National Park, which has thousands of rangers and hundreds of vehicles, and then I go to Chile and they have 2 motorcycles and a couple of trucks, and the park is the same size.
Wow.
And so it gave me a lot of perspective and empathy. And the travel to Mongolia and to Nepal and these other places gives you a perspective on why the help is needed and the difference that it can make. And so I always encourage international travel for people.
And also, you're not traveling on a tour, like a tour company with a guide. You're traveling and you're meeting, rangers in these countries. You're seeing real lives. And I'm fortunate to travel a lot in Mongolia as well, because my wife runs Mongol Ecology Center and runs several programs in the country. So, I'm I get to see most of this country, which is fantastic.
And we went to Numrug, and which doesn't have visitors. It has researchers and it has rangers. And we got to go on a patrol with one of the rangers. And so that kind of travel gives you, again, a perspective that you just can't get any other way. It was remarkable.
Yeah, and it was very challenging. And this is something the ranger does every day.
Yeah.
So he's really going to be able to utilize this motorcycle.
Yeah.
I'm interested also in your expectations from, for example, before coming to Mongolia, I guess you already had those imaginations about Mongolia, about the people, culture, right? And nature itself, of course. So how different was that expectation than the real situation?
Well, for me, it was very different. And I will use Genghis Khan as an example. Right, the Western perspective of Genghis Khan, Genghis
Yes.
Khan, right, is just the warrior, and I didn't know anything about the world history of the Khan period, all of the contributions that still exist in modern society at that time that are rooted in Asia. It really was mostly about Asian food. Chinese food, Korean food, Mongolian barbecue, right? Like just these traditional Western, really shallow level of understanding. And so my perspective has completely changed, based on my experience here and my great understanding.
I
of
hope
the
in a
people
good
this
way.
Culture. Absolutely, in a very, very good way. And, to honor the culture. And that's one of the reasons I love coming back, is to continue to honor, that culture and continue to learn more.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
But before I met my wife, I'd never really even considered traveling to Mongolia, and I didn't really know what to expect until I got here. And now, two of my greatest decisions were marrying my wife and moving to Mongolia.
Oh. So another thing that I would like to ask is about fundraising, right? So could you please tell us how do you find finances?
The riders themselves raise the money. So each rider has to raise enough money to pay for their in-country costs and to pay for the cost of the motorcycle. And they do it in different ways. They have individual fundraisers. Some pay out of pocket. Right now, we're looking to get more funding, like on a grant level. So that's our next step, so that we can grow what we're doing.
Yeah, one thing we're still missing is that financial support from other foundations. And we've had good industry support. Yamaha has been supportive of our work in some ways. Companies like Moto and Big Agnes tents and gear, and Alpine Stars for boots, and they've been giving us gear, and we can raffle that, auction that, bring it. This rally, some of the rangers were borrowing some of our helmets from Climb, boots from Alpine Stars, and then we tend to give that gear to them at the end, so they have even better, stronger gear to work with. So we've had good gear sponsors and support. That's helped us.
And we've had some corporate support in Mongolia. Petrovis Corporation has helped us quite a bit, and actually had several of their employees ride on this rally with us. So we were able to spend some quality time with them.
And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Wesley's company, Trend Digital, has had strong financial support to keep and bridge any gaps that we have. They help to fill. And so we've had really strong support from businesses based here in Mongolia.
And should a person who would like to join your foundation and participate in those travels, right, should they be professional motorcyclists? Or
No, they don't need to be professional motorcyclists, but they do need to have off-road experience. We have when we first started this, had some riders come that that weren't experienced, and it's remote riding, and it's very difficult. And so when you get injured and you break a bone or something, it's
Anything
difficult
happens,
to get you out, and we've had that
course.
happen.
Yes.
In fact, I've broken a bone on one of these rallies before too.
oh, sorry for you.
It's very challenging riding,
Difficult, yeah, of course.
especially in Mongolia.
We do some training events, in the States, and we ask for video evidence, because we've had people who have just written in their application, oh yes, I'm very
Yes.
experienced, and then they get here and it's like, and so nowadays anybody can take a video with their phone, and we can see, can you go through the sand? Can you go through the water? Can you go through the rocks? Can you ride for 10 hours a day, 10 days in a row? Asking those questions, and the quality of rider just keeps increasing all the time. We've had great riders all along, but this year I would say again we were together the whole time. Some years we've gotten spread out by 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That didn't happen this year. Everybody was really just a few minutes apart, and good skill level was very comparable.
And I think this is probably the first year we haven't had an injury.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Good for you.
Nobody got sick, except for maybe the drive back.
Do you have a doctor with you?
We do have a doctor with us. Yeah, we have on the rallies. We have a doctor and we have a professional cook with us.
Wow,
so
that's
everyone
good.
eats well on the rallies because they need that energy.
Too well. I think I gain weight on the rallies, not lose weight.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, for example, if I would like to join your travels, what should I do? Ordinary person, not that engaged to.
Yeah, well, first make sure that you've got a motorcycle and you're doing a lot of riding.
Okay.
And we
So
ask,
I
we
should
really
write it
ask,
first of all.
yeah,
that I'm
yeah, we really ask three
really
things.
experienced, yes.
Three things of our applicants. Number one, that they have a passion for the project, and
So
they're
should
here.
I write down?
Yeah, you can write that down. Not just because it's cool and I want to ride in Mongolia. No, we want you to want to support and help rangers. That's what we're doing.
That's why we ask people to fundraise individually, because we want them talking about Mongolia. We want them talking about the parks that we're trying to protect. We want them talking about the individual rangers that they're giving their bike to.
In their application, you have to write, why do you want to join? And if somebody says, I really want to ride in Mongolia, that's in the maybe pile.
Oh, really?
But if somebody writes a paragraph about wanting to help and wanting to support the environment and park rangers, we're like, okay, let's take them to the next step. So the right passion for the project, the skills to ride in these places, and then the ability to fundraise. You've got to have either. Some people can write a check for the full amount, but many of us need to do fundraising through family and friends,
Yes.
GoFundMe and things like that. And then you just fill out an application, rallyforrangers.org.
Okay.
There's an apply button on there. You can explore which rallies are upcoming and which rallies have happened and learn more about the organization. But then you can apply right there on the website. And we ask quite a number of questions just to get a full understanding for who our applicants are.
Okay.
And then you look for an email from us to say, let's talk more.
Are people really interested
Yeah,
to join?
very much so.
Really?
Yeah. For Bhutan, we have, right now we have a waiting list. We have more people that want to go than can go, which is a great problem to have. And we continue to be, more, people are more aware of what we're doing, so we get more applications all the time.
Wow.
But we limit the rallies to 15 riders, just because we've tried going with more riders. We did 20 and it was just unmanageable. So 15 is where we stay. So there's often people waiting on waiting lists to get on the next rally.
Wow. Thank you. And what's next?
Well, Bhutan, fingers crossed.
Oh my goodness.
Where, COVID travel restrictions, are really playing a role. We've ordered the motorcycles, so the motorcycles will be there, and we hope that we are there to meet them. And then Peru in May, we're just working through our partnerships in Peru to do that, Machu Picchu and the Amazon, to some more World Heritage sites. And then, as Wesley said, back to Mongolia in July, and then Africa, hopefully, late next year.
Another thing that I think we failed to point out is that we ask national parks around the world to send in recommendations of who needs help, because we can't, determine every national park that needs help around the world. So we get applications, which is why we're going to Peru.
Yeah, parks can apply. They've heard about us now.
Oh,
and so
wow.
parks apply to be a recipient. And so we vet them the same way we vet the riders, make sure they have the ability to accept the finances, take care of the motorcycles, need the motorcycles, have the right kind of motorcycles available for us to ride.
Right. We also need to determine what kind of motorcycles they need. We can't just decide ourselves, we're going to give you this motorcycle because parts may be too expensive or gas may be too expensive. So like in Nepal, we gave 125cc motorcycles, which for us are very small. But for the rangers there, that's what they want and need, and so that's what we delivered.
Wow. Well, that's huge work that you do.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your coming and for your time. We wish you good luck and all the best. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet
Thanks
you.
for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we had bikers from the USA, also co-founders of Rally for Ranger Foundation, Mr. Wesley Thornberry and Tom Medema. We will see you next time. Until that, please stay safe and thank you.